Hello and welcome to the We Are Careers show, and hope you're having a fantastic week wherever you are in the career sphere. Sabiha, how's your week going so far?
It has been a very productive week, I have to say. Thank you, Chris, for asking. Now, if you're joining us for the very first time, this is a quick reminder that We Are Careers show is your fortnightly go-to for career professionals working within the UK market and beyond, who are looking to improve and enhance their continuous professional development by finding out the latest issues impacting the career development sector. Each show, we bring you the latest updates in the sector to keep you well informed. Plus, we bring you an inspirational guest. And today, oh, have we got a good whopper of a guest for you today? And the topics that we pick are based on the issues that matter to you. So if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, make sure that you do. And if you enjoyed today's show as well, make sure you hit that like button. Now, the aim is simple. It's to connect and build a strong community of career professionals so that we can serve our clients in the best possible way. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I'm known as Meet Sabiha, and I'm a talent acquisition director. And as always, I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Chris Webb. Chris, what have we got coming up in this episode?
Yes, thanks a bit. So we are looking ahead to another calendar year. Hard to believe it's come around so quickly. And I think it's going to be safe to say a fairly seismic year for the career development sector. So we're starting to see a lot of Labour's kind of policy proposals come into play, including one that's got a lot of people talking off the back of the Get Britain Working paper, the proposed merger of the National Careers Service and Job Centre Plus. But of course, against this backdrop, we've also got all of the usual challenges affecting the career development sector, including pay, recognition, and kind of diversity within our profession. So with all this kind of going on, we thought, let's dig into this in a little bit more detail at the start of 2025. And who better to help us dig into this than Caroline Green, founder of the Talent Cycle, and of course, host of the fantastic Careers Fest event. So Caroline, a very warm welcome to the show, and to any of our viewers and listeners who perhaps haven't come across your work before, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me along to the show. It's great to be here again. So as you say, my name is Caroline Green. I'm the founder of the Talent Cycle. So I am a registered career development professional. I wear that badge. I should have my badge on, actually, thinking about it. Wear that virtual badge with pride. I'm also an associate member of the CIPD. I'm a learning and development professional as well. And I combine those two things with my business, Talent Cycle. I've worked in the sector for nearly 20 years, getting on for 20 years. Makes me feel really old when I say that, but it's a sector that I love and I care about. I love working with clients, but something that I've been doing more over the past few years is, as well as working in the sector myself, I do a lot of work on the sector. So helping celebrate through the Careers Festival that Chris, thank you for mentioning, through that, but other work that I do as well, to celebrate this wonderful world of careers that we work in.
Oh, well, thank you for that, Caroline. And speaking of celebrating the wonderful world of careers development, it takes me smoothly onto the Careers Cheers segment. Now, this is the part of the show where we celebrate innovation, as well as inspiring members of the careers community, or simply giving a shout out to something positive that's happening in the careers world since our last show. So I'm going to kickstart it off by giving a shout out to and a Careers Cheers to, as we are talking about the talent cycles and the pipeline. I want to give a shout out to, if anybody is watching who is thinking about coming into the careers profession, or perhaps even is already in the careers profession but is now thinking of a new role for themselves, well, then head on over to the UK's top recruitment website for career sector. And yes, it is part of the CDI offering. It's the CDI jobs portal. Careers in Careers, where you can find the latest sort of availabilities of job opportunities within the careers sector. And they've recently done a revamp of the website as well, so definitely worth a look. So that's who I'm giving a careers cheers to. Caroline, I'm going to come to you next before I go to Chris. Caroline, who or what are you celebrating in today's show?
Well, I knew you wanted me to do a careers cheers, and I started writing my list. And when I'd got to about 300 names of different people that I just thought were fantastic, I decided we probably haven't got time for that. So I just want to do a shout out and a massive careers cheers to everybody who is working in the sector. It is the most wonderful, amazing, brilliant sector but it can be the most challenging, the most difficult at times for a whole variety of reasons. So as we're kind of here starting, brand new year, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody who works in the sector and for all the work that you do. So huge careers cheers to everybody.
Oh, I love that, Caroline. It's like we can give ourselves a pat on the back, folks, can't we?
Yeah.
I love that, Caroline. And Chris, how about you? What are you celebrating in today's show?
I'm going to be celebrating a thing, I guess, or several things, and those are the upcoming National Career Guidance shows, which come across 3 venues in February, I think February into March. So I'm going to kind of try and read these off so I get them right, just in case any of them have changed. So for those who've not come across the National Career Guidance shows before, these are basically events that sort of bring together careers professionals, educators, experts from industry, all about sort of exploring the latest trends in guidance. They're free for people to attend. Sort of pre-pandemic, used to get kind of quite big numbers kind of in person at the various venues they did. And I think over the last couple of years, they've been bringing them back to sort of the in-person model. So it's one of those events to really kind of look out for if you're a careers professional, if you enjoy free CPD, and let's face it, who doesn't? So I think there's 3 coming up this year. There's one on the 6th of February in Exeter. There's the North version, which I'll put my hand up, I will be at, which is at Leeds on the 27th of February. And then I think the London one is actually taking place on the 1st of April. So if you kind of type into Google National Career Guidance Shows 2025, you'll find the details about those, but we'll also kind of add everything to the show notes as always if people want to find out more. So big careers cheers, always great to see free CPD events for careers professionals.
Thank you, Chris, for sharing that. It's definitely worth making a note in your calendars. So, Chris, should we dive into today's topic and explore today's theme of what we're going to be talking about here today?
Yes, absolutely. So, Caroline, we've got you here with us. We really want to kind of maximize your time. And I think that the best place to start, I guess, is talking about 2025, which I believe you are looking to make the year of careers. Tell us a little bit more about that as a starting point, and then we'll dive into some of the detail behind that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. I think over the past few years, there's been so much more things going on. So whether across social media or on other platforms, other ways, where people are getting better at shouting at the work that we do, we are actually giving ourselves those pats on the back. We are talking about how amazing our work is and how important it is. And I know you've got Bella, talking to Bella and Catherine as a great example with the So Much More Than Talking About Jobs campaign. That's just one example of some of the great stuff that's going on. What I'd love to do is if we spend this year all collaborating, all coming together a little bit more and all jointly shouting about the work. There is still so much great stuff that goes on that we're not talking about so much, that we're kind of still hiding away, sort of so busy supporting other people, we forget to sort of shout about ourselves and all come together. The National Career Guidance Show is a great example of one of the fantastic events happening. Let's all support that as well, because we won't have that resource if we're not going. As I say, numbers weren't so great last year, so helping sort of with things like that, but also talking about the other activities and events that, maybe it's a LinkedIn post, or maybe it's a conversation with someone at a dinner party, or whatever it is. Let's just keep raising the profile of all the work that's going on. That's what I really mean by 2025, the year of careers.
And I know a big part of that from your perspective is us thinking more about the career development, I guess, talent pipeline. And I suppose that's a really nice kind of next point sort of move on to. So when we talk about this idea of the career development talent pipeline, what is that? And I guess where are the challenges at the moment when we think about that?
So to me, when we talk about talent pipeline, what I'm really talking about is making our sector fit for now and for the future, and making it robust, making sure that we are, we have enough staff to cover the work that we need to do, that we know that there are lots of scary statistics telling us that actually we are in a bit of a, I don't know whether we describe it as a crisis or not, but there is certainly challenges and concerns around the talent pipeline. The CDI Big Listen survey regularly shows that there are a lot of people talking about leaving the sector, either through retirement or just leaving to go on to other things. And what we don't, we want a certain amount of churn. The Careers England report from a few years ago shows that we have a higher than average turnover, which isn't great, but we want a certain amount of churn. But the sort of issue with the churn is we haven't got that incoming talent pipeline at the moment. So in practice, that could mean, clients aren't able to see careers professionals. There aren't enough of us to go around. I've been working with a college who spent a year trying to recruit a new careers advisor. They were offering, a good salary, a great package, but they were still, the careers advisors just don't exist around sort of here. So that then obviously has that knock-on effect that could mean that clients aren't getting the support that they need, or perhaps then organisations are getting desperate and having people giving careers guidance perhaps aren't qualified or just don't have the sort of right skill set. That not only harms that individual client that they're working with, but it can tarnish all of us and sort of the whole sector, which again is why the year of careers is so important that we shout about the great stuff that is going on. And what we want to do is to develop a strong pipeline. So imagine if it was the opposite, if we were fully staffed, if we were recognised for the work that we do. And also imagine if we had that full ecosystem as well. So this isn't just about thinking about the new talent pipeline coming in, it's also thinking about those of us who are in the sector already. As I've said, I've been around working in the sector for nearly 20 years. I don't intend to work forever. It's about encouraging all of us to think about what's our legacy, how are we going to support, Sabiha mentioned fantastic careers cheers to sort of those coming into the sector. How are we going to help support those, either give advice to people about coming into the sector, or those who are new into it, how do we kind of mentor them and support them? How do we have a strategic plan for that pipeline? And also linked to that as well is having a more diverse pipeline. We are not very diverse at the moment in every kind of sense. So it's thinking about actually how do we reach more people? How do we reach different people? How do we reach and some of that's about the language that we use and the resources we provide. Some of it is about how we talk about our sector. We often talk about, helping people is something that we do. Obviously, that's a huge part. That's a big motivator for lots of us. But there's loads of other ways that we can market this sector, particularly with young people as well. Talking about, there are lots of roles in the sector that are just as important to that whole ecosystem as advisors themselves. So, content, and actually lots of us have got multiple hats, haven't we? So content creator, like you guys are both doing your let's call it your day job of your supporting clients, but then you've also got this sort of other side of doing creating this brilliant podcast. You're not alone in that. There are other people who are creating content or who are entrepreneurs and things like that are going to appeal to young people. We need to sort of start talking about that as well, and also thinking about other ways to sort of talk to people, other sectors who naturally might be interested in this careers world as well. So I've sort of for a long time talked about those working in HR, particularly L&D professionals such as myself. I did it the other way. I went sort of careers to L&D and then kind of back the other way. But actually there's a lot of professionals, particularly post-pandemic, who are looking for a better quality of life and who are looking for that kind of wanting to get more out of the work that they are doing, to have that feel good factor. And obviously that's the career sector as well. So there's lots of different challenges but lots of opportunities there for us as well.
And a lot of that really came through loud and clear, I think, at the CDI conference back in November, where we heard lots of people kind of talking about, again, as you said, that broad church of career development work. We had people like Rosemary McLean talking about, organizational development career work, where working, directly with businesses on stuff that could be as wide-ranging as strategic projects, all the way through to kind of maybe setting up coaching, mentoring schemes. So as you say, that the breadth of what the career sector involves, I guess it's perhaps making that clearer to people that it's not just kind of targeted on one particular context or one particular type of role.
Absolutely.
And coming in on that, I've got a couple of questions, Caroline, because you're firing off questions now in my mind that I'm being inspired by as I'm listening to you. And I guess one question that probably could be a bit controversial, and we'll get to the how part of this in a second, but I want to ask the why. An individual career professional is watching this, listening to this podcast, listening to you speak, and probably at the back of their mind, there's a bit of a niggle thinking, why should I care if this industry of us, I've got my job, or I'm okay perhaps in the work that I am doing, or maybe they're not okay, but they don't quite know how to sort of navigate that. Why does this sort of kind of collect? Because I'm almost getting this impression from you and this energy from you, Caroline, about collectively coming together and bringing about positive change on many, many different levels. But why should an individual care about this? Is my first question.
Because it affects us all as individuals. Like you say, there could be a career professional who's sitting there thinking, I'm happy, I've got my job, it's all fine. But actually, as a sector, we are struggling. We have seen, in 2024, we saw some huge organisations that you would never have imagined would have struggled, going into administration. So actually, it's important in that sense. You don't ever know what's kind of around the corner. So actually developing the whole sector, shouting about how great the sector is, making it fit for purpose and for the future is really important to all of us individually. And it's what we're doing for our clients. Why wouldn't we be doing it for ourselves? It's about that, like you say, it's the collaborative, collective thing of not just sitting back and saying, oh well, actually, CDI can do that because they're a professional body. Obviously, CDI is doing fantastic work, things like the Value in Careers campaign, just as one example. But we can't leave it all up to them. They're a small team. We all need to get involved to make this whole sector kind of fit for purpose, and therefore to get the value that we expect. Also, the value is one word, the appreciation for the work that we're doing. If we can kind of all come together and raise that profile, build that talent pipeline, have a strong staff ecosystem. And also kind of the other bit of it is that, yes, there might be someone sitting there sort of thinking, yeah, I'm doing my job now, I'm okay with this, but I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. For me, when I talk about talent pipeline, it's not just about those who are coming in, it's those who maybe are feeling a bit stuck, that they are in one particular area of the sector and don't really know what to do. They don't really want to leave careers altogether, but that's actually what's happening because they're just confused about what else is out there. If we're all better at sharing ideas, you might be sort of doing a role where you're really, really happy, but actually then you hear about a different kind of role in the career sector and think, either for right now or the future, that's kind of interesting. That's sort of something that I'd be interested in looking at further. So it's doing what the careers community is brilliant at doing, is just all coming together as a community to support each other.
I love that explanation for why individuals should care and why this collective collaboration is so important. And we're going to be getting into the how part in a short while. But I do have a different question for you, which is that you've been working on, and this sort of fits in with what you've, some of the examples that you've shared, Caroline. You've been working on campaigns to raise the profile of the career development sector for the past few years. And you've been quite prolific when it comes to that effort. Why do you feel so positive about 2025, and where do you feel change is still needed in relation to encouraging more individuals to consider a career in careers?
I think there's been some great work going on already. Like I say, that feeling of, for those of us who've worked in the sector for a long time, it feels like there's been a real shift over the past, 3 or 4 years maybe, that people are starting to get more vocal. They are starting to shout a little bit more. I've already talked about Bella and Catherine as one example, but there's lots of others as well. Jess Peary is doing great work in terms of sort of bringing people together. So I think there are sort of fantastic things going on, but there are always more things that we can do, and in different ways. It's, as you say, I do like LinkedIn. I am on there on a fair bit. I am there sort of talking about different things. I do really care about it. I do do lots of sort of big things like the Careers Festival that's all about sort of supporting. But actually, you don't have to sort of, what I don't want is sort of listeners to think, oh gosh, I haven't got time to run a big event. You don't have to. There are small ways, little ways that you can help support. And a lot of it is just about raising that general profile, but also thinking about different things. So the amount of careers professionals I see running things like careers fairs, for example, and they will bring in loads of different employers, and that's fantastic. We never think about our own sector. We might have a careers professional there who's there giving advice, great. But actually, if you've got someone there from the career sector talking about the world of careers and the different jobs that you can do, or perhaps even, trying to, like we sort of mentioned earlier, there's lots of different takes on this. So lots of employers will have careers professionals, for example. So could you get one of those employers who are maybe talking about, I don't know, engineering, but they've also got a sort of someone who's more career focused, so perhaps they're sort of focused on bringing in young talent, for example. Could you have them talking at the festival, at the event? There are different ways that you can kind of drip feed this information and bring it into the general public and everyday language.
Yeah.
Go on, Chris. You're going to come in then for a second. I've got something else that I want to contribute, because Caroline has just made a light bulb go off in my head right now, which is that, yeah, why don't we have a table, right? A careers fair where they're talking about how to become career professional in all the different shapes and guises. I don't think I've ever been to an event or a careers fair where I've seen that actually happen. You always see the engineers, you always see healthcare, you always see all the other sectors being represented. But I'm trying to think of a time where I've seen the career professional being represented.
I
Go
know
on.
some careers professionals do it. So what I will say is that we will have people listening and watching this who will probably be sitting at home going, "That's me." And
Good. Let us know. Let us
great
know.
examples
If
of
that's
that,
you,
yeah.
let us know. Share that story. Yeah, exactly. Right, Caroline, we'd love to hear about that. We'd love to know
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
where and when it's happening. So that's good to know, Chris, that you're observing this practice.
And that's a good example actually of how we need to share that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and just to help support each other, because like I say, and it's not a criticism of those who don't, it's we're so used to putting our clients first, we're so used to, and I get if you're in a one-to-one you can't necessarily push the career sector, you need to be that kind of ethical, unbiased conversation, but on something like an event that you could put sort of some of that forward, but maybe you haven't, it hasn't even occurred to you. So if you are one of those people who are doing that, brilliant, share it, talk about how you did it, you know, was it someone from your own department? Did you sort of bring someone else in from a different company that perhaps you've worked with, or whatever it is? Just sort of share that advice to help people, and this will all form part of the 2025, the year of careers as well. It sort of ties it all.
And it's such a good point, because again, it's that sort of, as you say, sometimes being a little bit blinkered to our own industry as an industry we might talk about. Whereas, you know, you say we might be quite comfortable talking about engineering or healthcare or even, you know, green careers. But actually that idea of, well, we're in a sector ourselves, which is very, very broad. And you sometimes hear it talking with, you know, clients where it might be, oh, I'm interested in getting to advice and guidance related work that might include, you know, mental health and well-being. It might include kind of working with people who need, you know, perhaps support with homelessness. Oh, and I've also been looking at careers information, advice and guidance. And I think a lot of careers professionals might sit there and think, oh, that's quite, when that comes up, it's quite jarring. Someone's actually interested in what we're doing. But of course, as you say, the more you talk about it and normalize that idea of talking about it as a profession, the easier that becomes, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that word profession is really important, and also to talk about, as we said, that there are this sort of plethora of different roles that you can do. So it's important that we keep talking about those, that we think about our own language, that we are careful with what we say as well. You know, quite often we can be publicly quite negative about our sector. Sometimes we can get frustrated. We can talk about, you know, some of the pay in parts of the sector is shocking. Absolutely, we need to address that. We need to solve that. Absolutely. But let's not just sell that as the message, because there are other areas where, you know, if finance is crucial to you, then there are sort of areas where you can make more money in the sector and things like that. So it's just that awareness, that variety. And this is part of the problem, right? Is that we've got all these different roles, different entry routes, different qualifications, different options. These are all really, really fantastic, positive things. You know, these are actually selling points of our sector. But what it does mean is that people who are looking, you know, and I have a lot of people approaching me who will say, I want to get into careers, but how do I do that? You know, I've had a look, I'm really confused. So sort of directing them to sort of useful sites, and, you know, lots of information on the CDI website, or, you know, helpful people, you know, who will be happy to talk about it. I'm also going to be working in 2025 on doing some work around, and I've been talking about it forever, doing some work around more of a career path framework, so we can lay it out a bit more clearly of here are the different types of roles that there are. And this is, you know, perhaps you're doing this role and this could lead on to this one. Here are the skills that you will need. Here are the additional qualifications you need. Just laying it out a little bit more simply for people so they can understand how they can move around. These are all really important parts of how we develop and grow our talent pipeline.
Thanks for that, Caroline. That's really interesting to know what you've got coming up and what you're developing that's going to help the profession. Now, I know Chris has got some questions on New Year's resolutions because it's that time of year. However, before we do that, I do want to just quickly ask you, Caroline, now that we've got you here, what any other ideas? I mean, you're definitely sparking ideas in my mind, so I'm sure that you're doing the same for the viewers and the listeners as well. On a practical sort of kind of day-to-day level, Caroline, what would you recommend that an individual could do that can take action on, that can help, as you say, make 2025 the years of where we celebrate the careers profession?
I think a lot of it is just about raising the profile of what you are doing. We are so good at doing amazing work and not telling anyone. So it might be about getting involved in one of the sort of various campaigns that are running, or it might just be doing your own post, or like I say, it might be just sort of talking to people at an event. It might be going to an event. You know, being the best professional that you can be as well is going to help. So going to these sort of events, and whether it's a sort of CDI conference or whether it's a careers festival, or you know, like we said about the National Career Guidance Show, there's sort of good examples of things that you can go along to, and keep sharing ideas, because like you say, even having this conversation, you know, we've got light bulb moments going off. I would love to you know, hear from people who are listening to this about what ideas have they got. That's part of it as well, is sharing. I haven't got all of the answers, and I'm never, you know, I don't pretend to. And just for me, some of it is about trying to get some of this conversation going, and sort of thinking about the different ways. So as I say, there's a lot of work that I'm doing, resources that I'm producing, and so on. You know, follow me on LinkedIn. I'll be talking about those a lot. So inputting into those, sharing those is great. But you know, if you've got your own resources as well, share those with us all. We just need to keep, you know, it could be lobbying your MP if you sort of feel strongly about actually how supportive or not they are of the careers sector, things like that. There's so many different things that you can do.
Yeah, and I think that was what was notable that came out of some of the conversations around the CDI's Value in Careers campaign back at the CDI conference in November, was that, as you say, there were actually quite a lot of small practical things people could do on an individual level, or as small teams, or as career services, or within their region, and actually kind of almost building out from that. And that leads us, I suppose, really nicely onto, you know, we're in January. Let's talk about New Year's resolutions. And I suppose as we look ahead to 2025, what are 3 things, I guess, that you feel, Caroline, could be meaningfully done to improve the career talent pipeline this year, and I guess beyond?
So I think my first thing is all about collaboration, and I've mentioned this a little bit already. You know, we are stronger together, whether we're talking about us as individuals, organisations, whoever you are, coming together. We are stronger together. So sharing ideas, and that doesn't mean that we all have to do the same thing. It doesn't mean we can't, you know, as I've sort of mentioned, there's lots of people who are doing great, you know, bits of work, great things to help support the sector. What we don't want is everyone just kind of going off doing their own thing, and then there's no kind of golden thread running throughout it. You know, it's much better if we can do that and we can collaborate and all come together. So that's definitely sort of my first thing. And some of that, again, is, and this is part of why I'm sort of talking about raising the profile of stuff that you're doing. It's not just about for the general public, it's about so that we can see, you know, what each other is doing as well, and how we can support, help, you know, share these things as well. So definitely sort of collaboration and all coming together is my first thing. Second, I've mentioned this already, but kind of better mapping is something I'm working on in 2025. So developing this career path framework to show all different roles and how they all kind of fit together. This is massively going to help the talent pipeline, I believe. I think it's going to be a big game changer. I know some organisations have got bits of it already. I know ACAS have got something particularly focused on HE careers, but it would be great if we could bring all of that together. So if anyone would like to get involved with that, or has got any information or advice, if they can get in touch with me, that would be great. So that's my second thing. And my third thing is, and again, I've touched on this already, is about better options for diversity. We need to be a more diverse workforce. So we need more diverse role models, for one, and more diverse approaches to how we engage others. And, you know, like I mentioned, that includes things like, you know, how we engage other sectors or people working in those to kind of come into our sector, as well as thinking about the different ways we resource and, you know, the resources that we use to engage young people as well. Those are my 3 hopes for 2025 and beyond.
Not ambitious at all, Caroline. Oh my God, I'm listening to them and thinking one of those would be enough to keep you busy for like years. And you've just put it out there. I love it. Dreaming big, as I call it. Like, we have this motto in our community where we talk about the triple B, and it stands for be big, be bold, and be badass. And literally, you've kind of like hit every one of those aspects of what we talk about. And so, as Caroline said, if anybody there who's listening, who's thinking, I want to get me some of that. I want to be part of a project that does, whether it's the mapping part, whether it's the diversity aspect. Reach out to Caroline. As she said, she's on LinkedIn. So that's the place where you're going to find her. So head on over there and connect with her and share with her what you've got. And I really resonated, Caroline, what you were saying about that golden thread and weaving it through and making sure that we're not just individually working in our little silos, whatever that is and whatever that looks like. And that's not to say that collaboration is always easy. I mean, I'll be honest, me and Chris don't always agree on everything. Like, we'll be like, oh no, we want to do this, do it that way. But that's okay, because that's part of professionalism that you have to have. Like, you have to have diversity of opinions, diversity of approach. And we're unique individuals. I come from a very different background to Caroline, yourself, and Chris, and others. My journey in the career sector is unique to me. However, have I got value to add? Yeah, 100%. So what I'm saying, I guess, to the listeners today as well is that you too also have value, and you too can also contribute. And it's finding a way that's meaningful for you and connecting with other careers professionals is what's going to allow you to, as Caroline put, leaving a legacy behind of the work that you have created, because you will have done. And so, Chris, as we come to the end, as we always do of today's show, what are your final thoughts and what have we got coming up next?
Well, I don't think there's anything more I can add to that. I think beautifully put. I suppose only really for anyone that's kind of viewing or watching the podcast, listening to the podcast, just that reminder that if anything that Caroline said has interested you, and I suspect there's a lot in there that will have, do check out her profile on LinkedIn. We'll be including that in the description on YouTube and the episode notes on Spotify, along with any resources we might have mentioned, such as the ones that came up in Careers Cheers. So that pretty much takes us very nicely to the end of the podcast. So all that's really left to be said is a massive thank you again to Caroline for joining us today. And a massive thank you to everyone watching or listening to the podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in the career sphere in a fortnight's time. Take care.